Well, what is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of a market update. My name is Louie. We're at KitchenTableTCG. We're going to do market updates for all the sets. I'd love to shout out Mitch from Midtown Merchant and also my Patreon right there. If you're looking for singles, go to Midtown Merchant. Use my promo code JustLove10. And if you're looking for a collection tracker, I do have one of those. It's available with my Patreon. Just hang out to the end of the video to see all that information. But let's go ahead and get ourselves into Arcane Rising. We'll start off with Unlimited. We'll do a little market update for everybody. So let me cut the music for everybody who didn't like it, and let's hop right in. So right now we're seeing sealed boxes selling for around $94. That seems to be the price, the going rate for sealed box on eBay. Keep in mind that these boxes have had a historic past, right? Like we've seen prices that were in the 140s right around Christmas time. But now we've kind of had a consistent noise at around $100. So there are other people who will sell boxes in the community at $80 each. George from Compete Sports, some other people who will sell boxes as they get new stock in. So just keep your eye out for that when the market kind of brings us more boxes. You shouldn't be paying this kind of over $100. It's a little ridiculous. So let's get into the Fabled. This is the Eye of Ophidian. So there was one that sold for $775 on eBay this week. But there's still one currently listed for $700 on TCG Player. So make sure you're shopping around, doing your. Oh, you can't even see that price because my face is there. It is $700. You can see it down here. Make sure you're shopping around and doing your deals everywhere, not just on eBay, because the pricing is kind of all over the place, and that's what these videos are for, is to kind of take pricing from eBay, TCG Player, Facebook, Discord, put it all in one place, and kind of see a whole market perspective here. So. That's where the eye is. It's kind of been the same price for the last couple weeks. And then this has had a pretty good history too. I mean, you can see anytime that we get more boxes in, so this is like a restock, it drops down, 30%. And then slowly kind of goes back up, and it kind of floats at this like $700 range. And then we get more stock in, and it drops to $500. So keep that in mind if you're looking to buy one. I do think we'll get more Unlimited Arcane Rising and kind of soon in the next month, 2 months. I don't know how long it'll take. But I do think we'll get at least one more big wave of unlimited Arcane Rising and WTR. So just keep that in mind. But right now the eye seems to be at $700. Legendaries. We had an interesting week in Legendaries. Some decent movement. We're starting to see like solidification of the increases that we saw about a month ago. And there were some things that were moving. There were some high sales. There were some low sales. Kind of took the average of all the sales. Techno Foundry Heart at 125, Skullbone Crosswrap at 125, Grasp the Arknight at 115, Storm Striders at 130, and Arknight Skullcap, at 200. That puts your average around 139 or $140, which is a slight increase this week. But just keep in mind that we're seeing some spikes on the ones that are being spoiled for Monarch, like the classes that are being spoiled for Monarch. There has been some action on all the legendaries across the board, which is more in line with WTR. There were, 2 classes from WTR that saw spikes, whereas here we kind of saw, honestly, Grasp the Arknight, we didn't see a huge increase because I'm not sure where it fits in that Shadow Runeblade deck. But anyway, that's your average price is 140. The Majestic Rainbow Foils, we did, kind of continue to see Art of War being a hot card and kind of solidifying the price at $70. Command and Conquer up just a little bit. Everything else is pretty average onto where it has been. Really no huge movements, just a 1% after our huge gains last week because of those cards. Again, we've been so, if you look at the graph here, it is, the high point was at 30 or 42, but that's pretty accurate to where we've been. It's kind of been within $5 of your average. So that's kind of nice to have like solidified pricing of these cards. The regular Majestics were a little bit more volatile the last couple weeks. We saw a huge increase, mainly because of Art of War hitting up to $54 from $17. Well, this week we've got Art of War sitting at more like $38, which is a little bit of a decrease, which causes the whole thing to drop just a little bit. So that's where that is. If you want to see the other cards, like Red in the Ledger down just a little bit, as people were kind of specking that Ranger would get offered and now it wasn't. There's just some little movements, but kind of the big driving force here is this Art of War. Command and Conquer also down to $52 too, as we're not really seeing the Arsenal support that everybody was specking on as well. So we'll see how Command and Conquer shakes out at the end. But This was seeing like $73 as people were really, hitting on the Monarch spoilers. And now as we kind of have seen that Arsenal is not going to be a thing, or the increased Arsenal support is not going to be a thing potentially, it's kind of dipped in price. The super rare the super rare rainbow foils, we are seeing a decrease again. So this is kind of a retracement from last week's big increase. Kind of just a retracement all across the board. Still some cards that are, going up to see some potential play. Again, I'm not sure that maybe at this point people are starting to pick some cards for potential decks so that they have cards. They're playing some constructed for Monarch. That might be a little bit happening, but I do think also it seems like a lot of the cards are down just a little bit. So I don't know. Maybe we're still seeing people not picking up cards, and that's the driving force. But last week we saw an increase as people were kind of speccing on some stuff. So I don't really know what to say here. This is just the market data. We are down 10% from being up 10% last week. So we're just kind of accurate right there in the middle. We did have cards selling for around $10 back at the beginning of the year, and we've just kind of lost value as time has went. Yeah, I don't really know what's going on there. So the super rares, the non-foil super rares are actually down 20% this week, which again, that seems like a huge number to me. I don't know. It seems like sellers have, just decided to lower, and the market just is picking up the cards, and I don't know. I don't really know what to say. I'm just here to share the market data. Your average super rare is sitting around $2. I mean, that's not a huge difference from here. I mean, it is 20%. But again, these super rares have been very non-valuable historically. We saw some value early, but then, we just have seen significant losses. And now with everyone's focus on Monarch, it just kind of continues here. All right, the rares, just keep in mind, I use TCG low for the rares, but sellers have lowered their prices by 4%. You want to see a graph? I mean, you can just see we are just kind of in a kind of a free fall almost on the rare pricing. This is all TCG low. And then the same thing being true with actually, I guess it is the same thing technically, but it doesn't really matter because they're rare. I mean, we already dropped, we already free flew, and here we are. So, all right, let's get into the only other thing is that the common rainbow foils, some of these equipment do have like $2 to $3 value, so make sure you're looking at those. You can get $3 or $4 for those if you pull them. And they do seem to move that way. They do seem to move for that price on TCG Player. But all in all, the common rainbow foils are even down this week. So let's take a look at our EV calculation. This was a rough week. So in a box, here's what you can expect to get is 42 rares. You'll get 4 foil rares. You'll get 4 super rares, 1 foil super rare, 2 majestics. 1 in every 4 boxes will have a foil majestic. 1 in every 4 boxes will have a chance at a legendary. And then you have a 1 in 40 chance at hitting the Fable. And that puts you, if you were to open 40 boxes, which is what this price is right here, if you were to open 40 boxes, you'd be sitting at an average of $118.45 per box. But if you just open 1 box, you're not going to hit the chance at the legendary, you're not going to hit the Fable, and that's going to take some value out of here. So if you're opening 1 box, you should really be expecting around $66.20. And then if you have a master set of this set, a master set of unlimited, and you have 1 of each card in each printing, so 1 rainbow foil, 1 non-foil, you'd be sitting at $1,307.92. So let's look at the EV chart here. You can see, we started up at the 170s and we are down to the 118s. Just slow growth or slow decline in the unlimited as more cards come out. And we're down 7%. And, last week we were up 8% as a result of some of that spoiler stuff. But this week we are down 7% as the spoilers took over a new realm. So let's look at the top cards to gain value. Number 1 is Chains of Eminence, the rainbow foil, going from 250 to 5. That's a change of 100%. Storm Striders, the legendary, going from 115 to 130. That's a change of 13%. And Teklo Foundry Heart, the legendary, from 115 to 125. That is a change of 8%. The non-foil gainers, nothing really huge here. 50% gains, 5-cent gains. Really not a ton of movement in the non-foil gainers. All right, let's go to the cards that lost the most value from Unlimited. Tome of the Aetherwind Rainbow Foil. A lot of super rares on this list. Tome of the Aetherwind Rainbow Foil lost 45%. Lesson in Lava lost 31%. And then Sonic Boom, this is a Majestic Rainbow Foil, went from 33 to 24. That lost 27%. So interesting stuff there. And then the non-foil losers, we had some across the board, all super rares. The super rares in the set, both rainbow foil and non-foil, were kind of weird this week. So a loss of $1.50, $1.75, and $2 for Forked Lightning, Lesson in Lava, and Pursuit of Knowledge, around 50% on average on those losses. So, all right, let's go ahead and get to the first edition cards. I just want to hit you one more reminder that I do have a Patreon. If you are looking for a way to track your collection, all these values update automatically. So you can have a collection tracker for yourself there. And then, they update automatically when I do the market updates. And then I do have a podcast too. I'm going to share the market data here, but I kind of have a podcast that do more speculation and more like if I were investing in things. So if you're interested in that, hit up that Patreon link right below my little face there. All right, so this is for first edition booster boxes, which are the same print run as alpha booster boxes for WTR alpha. So 1666. Anyway, so this week it's a weird. You could take this price as 3,700, and if I was selling a box, I would take this price at 3,700 and say this is what the value is. But there was also, if I was buying a box, I would say, oh well, this one sold for 3,300. This one sold for 3,300. This one sold for 3,400. TCG player, I think the lowest is like $5,000 or something like that. So that doesn't really help. So I went with 3,400 this week. I mean, the person in me that wants the values to go up wants to say take this one or whatever. But the fact is that the market data is suggesting more of like 3,400. So that's kind of where I landed this week. That is a decrease of 13%. But keep in mind, we had this huge increase. And so now what happens is people take their gains, right? We've seen this before. We saw this before way back in January, where we saw a huge, pretty huge increase. And then we saw people kind of retrace and lose their value there too, or kind of sell off and then we saw kind of a stagnation point. So that seems to be what is happening here again. Let's go with the Fable, the Eye of Ophidia. So there was one that sold like on Saturday. It must have been after I did my video, I think. So sold for 19,000. And this one was in good condition. Everything looked good on it. So that's kind of the price I took with it. It was the best offer that was accepted. So that puts us down 19%. Again, a huge growth in this card over the last 4 weeks. It's not surprising to see some downwards pressure on it. Honestly, it's just not surprising. So that's kind of where it is. This graph, it's weird on my screen. It's different. Oh, you're only seeing, you're not seeing this week. You're seeing last week. Let me add some columns to the left of this so I can squeak over. Boom. So we saw these huge increases at 19%, 24%. And so it's not too uncommon to see like a retracement in cards like this. I do think that this happened once before. It was a little bit longer of a standstill here, where we saw an increase up to the around $1,500 mark, and then it kind of like 15,000. These are expensive cards. And then we saw a little retracement, and then people picked them up as they saw that retracement, and then it went up. So I would anticipate that happening again because time repeats itself. So the legendaries, this is where things kind of get a little interesting. On the legendary front, Techlo Foundry Heart last week's sold listing was a little interesting. This week, it kept the price at 2,500. Skullbone Crass Wrap, I didn't see one. It kept the price at 2,400. But there was a Grasp the Arknight that sold on Facebook for 3,500. Grasp the Arknight, Scabskin Letters sold for 3,500. So that kind of labels us here. And then there was another Storm Striders that sold for 3,500. I think it was on Facebook too. But here's where it gets interesting. There was an Arknight Skullcap that sold on Discord for 3,900, and there was an Arknight Skullcap that was on TCG Player that sold for 3,000. So 3,000 seems low to me compared to where the non-generic legendaries are. So that price seemed like just a really, really good deal. And the 3,900 would be more in line to where the prices have been historically, where like the generic is slightly above the price of the class specific. So I went with 3,900. Just wanted to share it with you in case you saw that TCG listing. The person who got it for $2,999. So all in all, 14% increase here for the legendaries, and these are very, very difficult. They don't pop up very often. It's just interesting to see the growth because people just don't want to move them. People don't want to sell them, is what it appears to be. So yeah, nice to have some new numbers here for the class specific, and that always helps us value. Honestly, if I was buying or selling, if I was buying, I'd be like, the last sold listing is 2,400. But if I was selling, I would be saying like the class specific ones are selling for 3,500. So these prices are probably low, but we don't have sold data to explain that. So, all right, let's go to the cold foil commons, Louis' favorite cards in the whole game. So, we see a lot of these sold, but we're starting to see the market dry up for cards sold on the cold foil commons because sellers are raising their prices or keeping them high. Sellers are really valuing these at more like $800 on average, whereas buyers are trying to sneak them in at like the $400 to $500. So the market just isn't agreeing. So we're not seeing as many sold. The last 2 weeks, we've had very little sold compared to where we used to be. All the green are confirmed sales. So Achilles Accelerator selling for $403 on eBay. Robe of Rapture and Talismanic Lens both for $565 on eBay. Mage Master Boots sold for $500. Nolrun Hood, I can't remember. I think some of these are on Facebook. Sold for $400. So we're seeing a lot of movement at these prices. I think what will happen is eventually the market is going to have to decide. Sellers are going to have to decide if they lower the price from the $800 range. Buyers are going to have to decide, hey, if I want the card, then maybe I just need to go ahead and spend the money to pick up that card. So all in all, again, this is going back to our retracement period. People are buying Monarch right now, and B, we had huge gains. So more cards are hitting the market as people say, oh yeah, I'll take $500 for my card. But people are picking them up when they lower their price to the current market price, as opposed to when they sell them for that kind of $800 range. So the Majestic Rainbow Foils had a good week too. The Majestic Rainbow Foils, we had 2 sales, High Octane for $385 on eBay, and a Techlocore for $490, which was a bid, which was an auction, which was very interesting to see that. So $490 for the Techlocore. I would say that these, again, like if you were selling, you could probably use these other listings to say, they're really more like $420, the average. So your average rainbow foil, we haven't seen a sold listing of a Command and Conquer for a long time, so that price is probably outdated. But again, it's hard to know what things are actually selling for because there is some back alley deals go on, but also it's just people aren't selling the cards. So all in all, we saw a 9% increase. Your average rainbow foil Majestic is sitting at $490 or $460. Sorry. We saw a huge increase back at the beginning of the year on these cards. And then we kind of saw a lull, and now we're starting to see a pretty big increase on these cards again. So it would be interesting to see who sells the cards in the future and how many more come to the market, as opposed to just kind of, what's going to happen if people don't sell their cards. So the Majestic non-foils, again, not a ton of sold this week, but honestly, we actually lost some value, but we had some huge gains last week, like Mordred Tide up to 65. And there was that one that sold on Mordred Tide a while ago for 108. So that kind of is another retracement back to kind of the average pricing, and a Techlocore for 55. And then an Arcane Ascendancy, another one sold at that same number as last week for 50. So it puts our average at $92.50 or a 2% loss. And you can see that graph too. Like everything's kind of, bounces back and forth and then goes up kind of generally. The super rare rainbow foils, let's see how these held up compared to unlimited. It seems like these are pretty hot lately. Lots of people purchasing them. Lots of prices, like this 195 induction chamber has been on the market for like a month or two, and somebody bought it this week. It just seems like people are starting to put their money towards these things. Become the Arknight, this was an eBay auction at $202.50. Lesson in Lava, I think that was an eBay auction too at $173.50. So lots of movement on these cards. All in all, $116.53 is your average, and that is an increase of 11%. And then the super rare, this is the non-foil versions. Lots of these moved this week too on TCG Player. Again, a lot of those prices that kind of weren't being accepted fully now starting to be accepted for a 5% increase. Nothing individually interesting, just kind of a 5% increase. And if you look at the historical chart on here, like you can just start seeing like a little bit of increase, a little bit of stagnation, a little bit of increase, a little bit of stagnation. Really, again, like a sign of a healthy market in my mind. So the rare rainbow foils, keep in mind, I use TCG low. These are drying up. I mean, there were so many that weren't, there are so many cards that aren't available, and somebody has been purchasing these because the average price of the current listed ones is up 24%. So very, very interesting. people have started picking these up, and that's driving the price forward. I usually pick out some of the ones like this $100 one actually needed probably to be picked out, so that might be a little bit high. That probably is more towards like the $25 range. I'll just fix it now. Actually, it's still up 17%, and I'll go back and check that before I update the tracker for the patrons. But what was that? That was Enchanted Melody Blue. So that was just like the ones. So what happens here? This is exactly what happened. The TCG low is 100, but if you go in and look at the sold listings, it'll be the last current listed, which was probably either 14 or 25, depending on how many they bought. So I'll go back and then I'll fix that one. But that's what I do. I kind of take the ones that are really high and I look at what the last sold was, and they are getting picked up on these. And it's interesting to see the market kind of snagging up some of these rare rainbow foils that are an average price of around $23. I would say the sold listings are probably at more like an average of like $17 to $18 each. But you are seeing these kind of move up over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks over the last 2 months. Only increases and no decreases. No sellers are lowering their prices. They're just increasing them. Let's go with the rares. I don't think these ones are the same. I think this is actually different. Yeah, really. I mean, I guess it is technically the same, but just a 1% increase this week. But we're seeing strong increases on the rainbow foils too. Even the rainbow foil commons, 18% increase. Again, like all these are just TCG low, and then I kind of go through and take any outliers. Like if there's a $90 or $100, like that's obviously not close. But a lot of these are moving up, and they are kind of being like, the low price has been accepted. So, if you are buying or selling these cards, again, make sure you do your own research. But this is kind of showing that like sellers are not taking their cards down. They must be selling, and then the next price up kind of picks up. So you're seeing like an 18% increase here in the sellers' prices. And it's actually more than that because kind of like the TCG low of some of these cards is like $100. But then I take the last sold listing on any of the ones that are kind of outliers. But interesting to see even like the common rainbow foils having value. All right, let's go to the EV calculation. Again, all the stuff is the same. If you were to open 40 boxes of this, you would be sitting at $2,756.16. If you take out the non-foil commons here, right? Like the non-foil commons, they had like what is that? $200 worth of value of the non-foil commons, because like a non-foil common, I didn't even show you, but a non-foil common, like the average price is like 90 cents, which you're not going to be able to sell all of them. Anyway, so if you take out the non-foil commons, you're sitting at $2,545.16. But if you kind of are just opening one box, you're not going to hit the legendary, you're not going to hit the fabled. Your kind of more idea here would be about $1,280.16. And then if you own a master set, which is one of each card in each printing, so non-foil, rainbow foil, and cold foil, you'd be sitting at $99,148. Let's go ahead and look at where that chart, this is the number we track, 2545. Let's go ahead and look at the chart. Oops, I had it wrong in here, 2545.00. So a 1% increase, really not like a huge gap this week, but we did go up even though like the eye went down, which is usually something that dictates the price of the whole set. The eye kind of really funnels the rest of the cards up. So when that card goes down, sometimes we have a negative. Like this is kind of what happened back here. But this week we kind of the rest of the cards moved the market enough. Oh, you can't even see that. That's super annoying. I'm sorry, everyone. Let me show you where that price is. So the 1% increase there. So that's kind of where we are. It was a 1% increase, and again, like the eye, even though the eye went down, it kind of continued. The rest of the cards moved the market. So. All right, let's go to the top 10 cards of the week. Become the Arc Knight went from 101. Then we had that auction that ended at 202.50, which puts it up 100%. Teklo Core, the Rainbow Foil Majestic, went from 250 to 409, which is another almost 100%, 96% increase. And then Lesson in Lava, the super rare, went from 100 to 173, which is a 73% increase. And then we are starting to see some of the legendaries popping up on this list at like 25, 35% gains, as we are starting to see some confirmed sales at that next tier at the 3,500. The non-foil gainers was Tome of the Aetherwind, up 100% from $10 to $20. Become the Arc Knight, up from 8 to 14 for 75%, and Arrested Relic from 15 to 20 for 31% increase. And let's look at any cards that lost value. And the cards that lost value this week was Endless Arrow, which had been a pretty hot card. Going from 150, we saw a sold listing at 100 this week. That's a 33% loss. Maximum Velocity just lost 20% from 140 to 112. And then Achilles Accelerator, this is a cold foil common going from 500 to 400 as people are taking gains, and we saw a 20% decrease on that. I have a video right behind it at another loss of 20%. So let's go to the top 10 non-foil losers. Nothing huge here. Tome of the Eighth Arc Knight from 20 to 11. That's a loss of $9 or 45%. Mordred Tide going from 65 to 51. That's a loss of 21%. And Ninth Blade of the Blood Oath going from $19 to $15. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the market update. Just want to say one more time, thank you guys so much for watching the content. If you're looking for a way to track your collection, I do have a collection tracker. We do have version 2.0 is coming out here pretty soon. And that will include Monarch and a bunch of the trackers. We're even going to do like play mats and that kind of stuff. So make sure you check out that. Without further ado, remember to be kind to the people around you. And we will see you tomorrow for a WTR video.